We talked a lot about AI. Many of us heard it only through helping us write perfectly crafted emails. If you got an email from me, most definitely written through ChatGPT. So what about AI being used beyond that? We know it's used in many different ways. So we want this panel truly be about future of health, truly be focused on what AI can bring back to our personal well-being. Our first speaker is an ideal way to start off this conversation. Today we are joined by Ene. He has an exciting project. He has an exciting way of looking at AI and how can it be used for the good of humanity and mankind, especially in the context of longevity. Thank you, Ene.
Thank you so much. Wow. Is this better? Okay. Yeah, so indeed, there is a very, very big difference between a language model AI and an AI that tries to understand much more complex data, such as our health. In a way, I almost feel like this is an iPhone moment for the future of health, where we really are, here in my pocket, I carry my digital twin. It's my, NA 4.0. It knows everything about my biology, my physiology, my daily activities, my dieting, my lifestyle, my environment, and so on. So what we've built is really the world's first operating system for longevity ecosystem. Let me tell you more about, what is actually, guys back there, please. I really don't like chattering. Yeah, if you don't mind. So there is a significant shift actually happening in the industry if you are paying attention to it. On one hand side, there is almost like a silver tsunami happening with the aging population. The chronic disease is still on the rise. And at the same time, we are really for the first time in human history decoding the processes of aging. On the other side, there's a convergence of technologies. We've just heard a fantastic panel on AI, and I can talk more about the serverless technologies and the deployment across different, cloud infrastructures and so on. We use AWS, by the way, so we're neither Microsoft or Google, but then at the same time, we have a commoditization of testing, like, the genome testing, gut microbiome, epigenome. These used to be really expensive and almost unaffordable technologies. This is now a commodity today. Wearable technologies, almost every one of us has a number of devices on them, continuously tracking us through our daily activities, sleep, heart rate variability, stress, and so on. And regenerative medicine is around the corner. So how does all of that combine? Because it's creating at the same time terabytes and terabytes of data of human health, and how is that actually interpretable? Language model, I mean, if you throw raw data to a GPT about your gut microbiome, it has no understanding. So really where the industry is now going is that its inevitability will be moving towards, not from the industry of today where we focus monetization on sickness, on disease, and developing drugs of hopefully maintaining people in a, let's say, chronic disease state for a little while longer, but really going towards preventive care, precision health, and regenerative medicine. And so before I go into the deeper part of the talk, really set the stage is for all of us to know, the difference between, the aging itself, right? One is chronological aging, which is just a continuum of, how many times the world has gone around the sun, versus your biological aging, which is truly telling you how your body is responding to your, life, whether, how your muscle, heart, immune system, and so on are evolving through time. So it's really about chronological versus biological aging processes that is really important to understand. And at the same time, it's lifespan versus health span. So as an industry, we've done a lot to extend the lifespan to, as much as we can. So we keep people living as long as possible, but very often not very healthily. So the average onset of age-related disease, chronic illness, and so on in the Western population is around 51. And the average time of death is 83 to 87, depending on country. So an average Westerner lives nearly 30 years in a chronic disease state. So here the curve on the right is really kind of painting the picture of, like, we all start, as a baby, relatively, on equal terms. And then the cells maintain a good ability to, take a lot of onslaught of bad habits, bad lifestyle, bad, diets and so on, poor sleep, etc., for a long time. But then after a certain amount of period, the ability to repair and regenerate starts really to decline. And that's where kind of the curve starts shifting. So we're starting to see the shift from the fit and well down to still being functional towards being, frail and diseased. So a lot of the industry is now paying attention to the health span extension. So how can we keep people healthier for longer, really squaring this curve. Of course, there's companies out there thinking about how we can focus even on lifespan with, technologies such as, genetic engineering, stem cells, and a whole bunch of other ideas. And at the same time, there's the more you go deep and use, what we'll talk later about the AI in health sciences, we're starting to see that even, much earlier in our lives, there's a lot of things we don't understand our bodies. We were actually never given a manual about our genetics, right? And so, it won't surprise you to know that I've used this kind of technology even to optimize my children's diet as they go through the crazy periods of, teenage years with, intense pressure of schools. They go through hormonal changes. My son, for example, would have, tantrums when there would be, very, very intense decisions because of a certain mutation in the NTHFR genetics, right? So that was kind of leading to a lesser ability to drive hormonal balance under stress. Doing a little bit of tweaking with, the right type of supplements, the right type of diet, those tantrums, the stress was gone, right? So it's smooth sailing. There's a lot of now activity and effort and interest. How can we bring these kind of technologies into, for example, precision sports, peak performance, peak recovery, and so on, right? So it's the understanding of human health in its entirety is really a much bigger picture than just the longevity. And maybe the last slide in this introductory part, just, for those who are not aware, we used to, let's say 20 years ago, we used to have a field called gerontology, which was the study of aging, but more in terms of, okay, what happens when we start being frail and we get Alzheimer or cancer. But now, the world has shifted because we started to identify that, aging is actually a mechanism of decline in the ability to maintain, let's say, health status of the cell. And it actually has a very, let's say, unified structure of, let's say, the hallmarks of aging, which is about genetic stability, it's about epigenome, it's about senescence, it's about mitochondrial health, and so on. So we now at least have language and understanding of the processes of aging that we can start adapting and understanding. And of course, these are driven by, let's say, the two kind of parallel stories. One is intrinsic, so based on the inside, our, the genetic ancestry we were born with, the microbiomes that we host, the epigenetics that we accumulate, but also by extrinsic drivers. So, the lifestyle, the environment, the diet, the stress, and so on around us. So what is new? We are a deep tech company which uses a combination of really an AI, bioinformatics, and deep learning technologies to understand human health. Our vision and our, let's say, mission is to power the longevity economy. We're a B2B SaaS platform. We're working with health and wellness longevity clinics worldwide. And we're now starting to, actually, it was really interesting to see Mohammed from Emar. We are a lot of collaboration, for example, in the Middle East, where they're thinking about the whole longevity economy. They're building entire infrastructural areas where they're thinking about population health changes, right? So bringing precision health into not just let's say the upmarket longevity clinic, but even in the daily life, tracking people through their life journey, whether that's a diet, that's a, precision sport, nutrition, and even smart homes with the exposome, which is the technology of environmental exposure. So what is, let's say, our longevity operating system? Where there's two parts to that. So one part is the platform that is used by the professional. That's either the clinic, the coach, the nutritionist, and so on, that looks at the patient or the client data. They can analyze population health, they can analyze cohorts, they can see how people's biology is being affected through different biomarkers and so on. So that can be looking either at age clocks, predictive scores, and that is used to assess people's, let's say, assessment towards potential disease or illness, right? And so that is allowing them to fine-tune and manage the health journey of these patients and clients, and at the same time feed that journey into a consumer-driven app. So the app gives you, kind of that digital twin I was talking to you about earlier, that ability to actually, go through your personal understanding of, what are your key biological age drivers, your essential lifestyle habits, nutrition, diet, sport, and wearables data. So it really connects to the whole understanding of your human body. And again, it's very important that it's not being looked at in a side way. Oh, these are my genes. This is my microbes. This is my HRV reading, right? You want to understand how things come together. What is affecting my poor sleep? What is affecting my anxiety? What is causing my liver to actually have a stress at the moment, right? So I really want to understand which contributing factors are making certain situations and what should I do in order to make that better and healthier. So in a very kind of, again, simplified way, how does the platform look like? It's a very complex story, but it's looking kind of through a number of different input aspects from, the biome, which is the genome, epigenome, gut microbiome, blood, now adding transcriptome data, proteome, and so on. The digitome, so all your technological devices on you, all the wearables, all the smart scales, smart mirrors, and so on. To the physiome, all your body scans, MRI, DEXA, etc. And now adding exposome, your environmental technologies. That feeds a very powerful digital twin engine, which has been trained on millions and millions of humans through all the major public biobanks like UK Biobank, Lifelines, NHANES, and so on, all the clinical literature, the millions of published papers in the scientific literature, and so on, and then connecting all the dots amongst each other. And then that drives a number of different insights. So if I want to understand, for example, how a certain input data is then feeding certain aspect of my question, like, how should I improve my energy or, lower, let's say, my inflammation and so on. It actually looks at all the combined knowledge of that space and all the interrelated, let me see if I have a slide on that. So for example, if I want to know about something, right? It's a graphical neural network, right? So it's looking at, for that particular question, and that's kind of where the AI comes along. It then searches through the graph neural networks, searches back through entirety of biological data, and then feeds that into the understanding of the interconnections between different data. This is really important, but it's only one factor. These are less important, but there are 20 of them. How do they play a role making me drive my lifestyle decisions, right? And so when we were talking about GPT earlier, I think that the first breakthrough, revolution when GPT came out, it was trained on something like 20 or 30 million relationships. Our engine has been trained on over 100 million relationships inside the biological data. And that's just scratching the surface, that's just starting. So, and of course, tens of thousands of interconnected nodes and thousands of biomarkers and so on and so forth. And the aging itself, it's a complex story, right? Because, you take a 70-year-old farmer up in the mountains here, right? He will be out there with his herd every day. His face will be wrinkly, his hair will be thin, maybe he will lack a few teeth, etc. But on the inside, his cardiovascular system will be amazing. His bones will be tough, and so on, right? So there is a certain, let's say, misconception of what's his age. On the outside, maybe he looks old. On the inside, he's amazing. Then you take a computer geek living somewhere in the cellar of his mom's apartment. He's 25 years old, but, eats pizza all the time, drinks Coke all the time. His skin is, very, very tight, white and shiny and so on. But on the inside, he's got cardiac problems already at 20, right? So he will have a very different biological age aspect. So what we do at NU, again, we look at the totality of data. We look at your biological stuff like blood age, microbiome age, epigenetic age, glycan, and so on. Your physiological, your body, your cardiac age, your body scans, and so on, even facial scans. And all of that combines into an overall understanding of who and what you are. We've also, just to have like a really a flagship showroom and a demonstration, we've built an amazing longevity regeneration center in Dubai. There's like a longevity clinic with all the multi-omics testing, etc., where we do, like I said earlier, the biome, the digitome, the exposome, the physiome. But really where we're driving the whole story is towards, the entire community building, the operating system for, real estates I mentioned earlier, and even more so the longevity economy, where we are basically a deep tech company developing, as you might want to call it, the Oracle, or, you name a software company that is the no brand behind the brand. So we are powering clinics, we're powering software platforms, we're powering products in the longevity world. Yeah, amazing team as well, international, very well recognized group of scientists. And yeah, that's it. Thank you very much for your attention.